And now, get ready, folks. It's time for Banter with Bob Sherwood and Dan Snell. Banter. And now, here's Bob and Dan.
Hey guys and gals, it's Saturday morning, and if you woke up this morning and you're wondering what is going to happen today that will be incredible, it's happened. And it's only happened in a small little press release. Not a big press release, not even a big article in Fox News, a little press release.
This is breaking news.
You know what it is. Now I'm going to tell you what it is, but before I tell you, I cannot tell you how big this is. This is
big. Wait a minute. Let me hear the crowd cheering. The crowd is cheering. I can hear it.
It's momentous because it's a completely turnaround from what Mr. Trump has been doing. And you know, I am a Trump supporter all the way, just so we're no clear. So what has he announced today, this morning, in a small press release? Hey, world, we are dropping the tariffs on iPhones, NVIDIA chips, and PCs. Unbelievable. I mean, I can hardly wait for the market to open on Monday and watch what happens to Apple computer stock. It's going to go up $25 a share. That's my pronunciation. Now, and that's my forecast. Now, that is such a big deal. Why? Because, of course, you know, and there were some numbers with it because they what they did is they couched it in terms of we're doing this, but we're only affecting, let's say, 10% of the total imports from China. So they kind of downplayed how important it was. They're still saying, hey, we're still holding Chinese to the fire, but
yeah.
If they want to ship computers, if they want to ship chips, if they want to ship iPhones, no tariff.
No, like is Lavona, is old IBM China? They bought that Lenovo.
Yeah.
Lavona.
Yeah, Lenovo. Yeah,
I need some more caffeine.
But here is the interesting thing for me is that we're going to hold Chinese to the fire, and I understand that we've left the tariffs on socks, clothes, and things like that, and shoes and other things, but I still didn't get the total gist of the announcement. I'll tell you why, because at the end and buried in some of the press, it said there will still be a 5% tariff on these materials. So I think what happened was he just announced we're rolling back all the incremental tariffs, but the old tariffs we have, which apparently average 5% on those products, are still in place.
Wow. What a way to start. What a way to start a special Saturday edition of Banter with that breaking news, Bob. And not only we have breaking news, but we have kind of a guest who's going to join us also next week, Mike Saubert. Say hello, Mike, to America.
Hello, America.
And our Banter fans.
Mike, where are you located?
I'm in Hoffman Estates, Illinois.
Okay, so Mike, why do you think he did this? Why do you think Trump relaxed these tariffs when he said he wasn't going to? Why did he suddenly change his mind?
Well, it has to be a supply and demand issue. That's the only thing I can think of. And the executives in these spaces probably got back to him and said that there would be, some bills that they didn't want to pay. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have a suspicion that Tim Cook called Trump and he said, Mr. Trump, about these tariffs on my iPhones,
right,
which is causing my stock to drop by $1 trillion. Remember, Trump, when I told you I was going to invest $500 billion in the United States?
Right.
Well, I've just changed my mind.
Yeah.
Invest 500 billion in Canada and India.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, the tariffs are changed. And
Right.
Trump said, okay, let me get the press release out really quick this morning.
Yeah.
Because that's what that's the strength of Cook. He already announced that he moved some of the manufacturing over to India. So he could threaten Trump because Trump made that big announcement, and Cook could just say, well, if the iPhones are going to cost this much, we'll have them built in Canada, or even worse, we're going to move them to Mexico.
Now, Bob, in a classic banter moment where I get to rise up, I'm never the type that says, I told you so. However, could this exact moment this morning harken back to probably 3 times in the last 10 days where I have said about the tariffs, Donald Trump didn't think through it. He didn't plan it. He didn't talk to wise people. He didn't gather people together like Tim Cook. And he just threw it out there willy-nilly.
Well, Dan, in contrast, the way you characterize yourself, you are a total I told you so person. You go back 30 or 40 years. If I have a relationship with a person that you introduced me to 35 years ago, every time I bring up that person's name, you'll say, and Bob, I introduced you to that person 35 years ago, who introduced you to this other person, introduced you to this other person. So no, Dan, you can't get away with that. You are a big I told. What's your middle name, by the way, Dan? What's your middle name?
Lee, after my dad. So be careful. Right? And my son's name is Lee. I'm named after my dad, Lee.
Yeah. So anyway, so that doesn't quite work. But yeah, you are. I told you so all the way. In fact, when you open with, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you I told you so," that's kind of like a prognosticator.
Yeah.
That indicates you're going to tell us you told us so. Now,
yes, exactly. But I did. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I was correct.
There we go. You're going to double down on it on top of that.
The fact of the matter is, I was correct.
Well,
it's a reflection on his leadership.
The interesting thing about you and I is I'm not interested in being right or wrong.
Wait a minute, folks. You're listening to Banter with Bob and Dan. You can write us at webtalkwithbob@gmail. I put that out right now. Try to cross to the top screen. Because if you want to write and say, holy Toledo, Mr. Banter King himself, Bob Sherwood says he's not interested in being right, you can comment on that.
No, I never said that.
Like,
Dan,
subscribe. See, he's trying to interrupt me as I'm promoting our show. Like, subscribe, share this.
Don't misquote me. I said I'm not interested in being right or wrong. That's what I said. You just said right. Now, that's true. And I'm also not interested in who gets the credit. So if you want to take all the credit for forecasting what Trump did, fine. Go ahead, take all the credit. I am an outcome person. And the outcome for me is now that it's happened, it is such a good thing that tells me again how smart Trump is. He used all the leverage he can. He pushed it to the limit. He saw $1 trillion drop in iPhones. He's not stupid, right? He probably did talk to Cook about what I just said. Cook probably said, hey, look, I can't invest $500 billion in the United States if the iPhone's going to cost $3,000.
Well, you are right in that. You are right in that.
Being the smart business person he had said, well, you're right. If the phone costs $3,000, it ain't going to work. So, okay, you keep your $500 billion invested in the United States, so we can always make that announcement. We'll drop the tariffs on the iPhones, and that's what happened. Big deal, I think. I'm excited. I don't really care why he did it. I don't care if he was stupid, if he was smart, he was dumb. If
he didn't think through it, is what the fact of the matter is.
If he woke up in the morning and his wife said, hey, Trump, drop those iPhones, drop those iPhone tariffs, I don't care why. All I care about is the outcome is going in exactly the right direction. And I'm glad that Kevin O'Leary, who's a friend of mine, or used to be a friend of mine, is going to be wrong.
Are you name dropping?
Who?
Are you name dropping?
Why would I name drop?
Yeah, let me tell you a story about name dropping. So one time, Billy Graham was telling me you should never name drop.
Well, who am I name dropping?
Kevin O'Leary. And I said the old joke. You should never name drop. That's not good. Long time ago, the Reverend Billy Graham, the most famous pastor.
I don't know anybody high enough in the world to name drop. Kevin O'Leary is just Mr. Wonderful. He's been really lucky, but I knew him when he was selling software at the back of his car.
His trunk.
His trunk.
Yeah.
That's right. So I mean,
folks, you're enjoying us.
Name drop. I don't care about him. He still owes me stock from a company that he started in Canada. He bankrupted the people in California, then goes to Canada, does the same thing, raises more money, becomes successful.
Let's get him on.
And by the way,
show.
I don't see any reason why Fox News should listen to a Canadian about American tariffs.
Because he's got followers. They'll do anything for
okay.
a buck
Right.
and a fan.
You are enjoying Banter with Bob and Dan. Sometimes it seems like they might require protective spacesuits to work together. Likewise, some families don't always feel like they're in a beautiful field walking, holding hands off into the sunset. They don't have protection and help they'd like. Across America, there are families who face not only banter, but genuine hurtful moments that impact marriages and children. Blended families, step-families, and even single parents every single day face very challenging dynamics and relationships. USABFA is an organization founded to offer understanding, encouragement, daily tips, resources, and services. If you're a single parent or in a blended family, check out usabfa.com. That's usabfa.com.
Well, that's the reason then. But
So anyway,
I had
folks,
something I wanted to talk to you about, Bob.
what is it? Mike,
Good.
fire.
Manufacturing in America.
Yeah.
manufacturing in America. That's our topic.
I've watched it go overseas since 1985.
Do you remember the famous quote from Ross Perot
Which was?
about NAFTA?
Go ahead. I don't remember it.
He said, if we sign this NAFTA agreement, you're going to hear a huge sucking sound as jobs leave the country.
Oh, giant. Yeah, the giant suck. You're going to hear the giant sucking sound. You people.
You
got it. You got it. That's
you
what
people,
he said.
giant sucking sound.
I used to say another thing that the Chinese companies come over and use our capital markets, and that giant sucking sound is American cash going overseas to build Chinese vehicles that we won't let in the United States now. And the reason we won't let them in now is because we're just so freaking stupid. Because what's going to happen, they use our capital markets to build up the biggest electronic vehicle market in the world over in China, batteries, lithium, the whole thing. And eventually they'll come in the United States and just crush the American companies. So meanwhile, we're giving them all the cash to do it and kind of laughing. Oh yeah, they're going to build Chinese vehicles. They'll eventually come in the United States. Anybody ever hear of Lexus or Hyundai? All these people, Hyundai came in. Oh, who's ever going to buy that kind of car? Now they make cool cars. Toyota, Lexus. In my driveway is two Lexus. And I'll guarantee you those cars, one car has 40,000 miles. That's 11 years old. We took it into Lexus the other day. You know how they do videos of the bottom of your car to show how it works? At least that's what Lexus does. Mm-hmm. This guy does a video of the whole car and says, there's nothing wrong with it. He said, just keep driving it.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Lexus does the cool. They'll have a mechanic and he'll video your tires. He'll show your tire. He'll show your measurement. Then they video your brakes. He'll say you got plenty of brakes here, and he'll actually video of it. They'll do video of your transmission. He'll say you maybe got a small leak there, but don't worry about it. He says it's probably not even leaking on your garage floor, and it probably won't for another 3 or 4 years. And then it goes over the whole bottom of your car. The bottom of my wife's Lexus, you could eat on. I mean, it's so clean. All right. And Lexus cleans your entire car before they give it back to you, inside and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know how to do it.
Yep. So that's high-end service for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a Ford man.
So my question is this.
Ross Perot sucking sound.
Right.
He sucked manufacturing out, but sucks cash out. I mean, think about it. We can't go to China and raise money on their capital markets and then come back to the United States and use the cash. But they do. NEO. Now, this is where I would agree with Kevin O'Leary, and he probably heard me say this. That's where he got the idea. But not only do they use our capital markets, right, aggressively, we can't use theirs. They come over here and go public. They do an IPO on our exchange, raise $13 billion. And where do people think that money go? And the other thing is that we don't even get a share of their stock. They want to allow an American shareholder who buys their stock to own a share. You get a proxy share.
Can we own land over there?
Shadow share.
If I want to make something there, does Apple actually own the plant or probably not?
Well, as I understand, the rule is 51% of any operation that goes into China must be owned by Chinese.
Yep.
At least 51%, right?
Now
so the answer is, yeah, they probably don't own anything.
The plethora of knowledge we have in our special Saturday edition Mike Saubert guest here, because he's going to be, in fact, we could breaking news, further breaking, or Bob, are you available Tuesday at 10:30 or for Mike to come on?
Probably, but since we're talking about
well, which one, so we can make sure?
Either one.
Which is better for you, Mike?
Wednesday.
You won't want to miss this because we're going to talk about stuff now. But Mike Saubert is also.
I want to talk about Roth Perot for a second too.
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish this thought because I have ADD.
Well, hurry, yeah.
I live on ADD Avenue. So Mike Saubert, he is a professor at Northwestern University, teaches design and drawing and sketching. And folks, you won't want to miss this because Mike Saubert is going to draw or sketch Bob Sherwood, Mr. Banter himself, live. And in 45 minutes, we will have the complete thing. We'll show you. So you won't want to miss next podcast of Banter. Okay, now back to
Ross Perot, one of my favorite guys.
You people.
So you remember this is a relevant story. So Ross Perot, you remember, formed a company called something and sold it to I think it was General Motors. EDS. He sold it to General Motors for billions of dollars. So he tells this story. He said he was asked the question, Ross, do you guys have any trouble merging with the culture of General Motors? And he said, well, to tell you the truth, yes. And he said, why? And he said, well, because our workers are snake killers. We kill snakes. The guy says, well, explain that to me. And he said, well, let's say you're walking through the halls of General Motors and you're a General Motors employee. You work for General Motors, you're an executive, maybe you're vice president of finance. And as you walk through the halls of General Motors, you see a snake. What does the General Motors executive do? He immediately sends a memo out and calls a meeting to figure out what to do with the snake. And sometimes at that meeting, they'll call another meeting to determine who do they call, the maintenance people? So they'll probably call 2, 3, 4 meetings to figure out what to do with that snake. But let's say an EDS person is walking through the hall and sees a snake. You know what we do? We kill the damn snake.
Shoot
and
the
then
snake.
Call the meeting. So Ross says, my people are snake killers. General Motors, they don't have any snake killers.
America, Ross Perot was also ahead of his time. He was kind of like an Elon Musk of sorts, but he was a little more professional businessman.
He funded the great movie with Gene Hackman.
He did? So besides, this is what's interesting, and it ties into what we always talk about, tariffs and manufacturing.
Yeah.
Folks, raise your hand or write us at webtalkwithbob@gmail if you ever owned a Sears, something from Sears, because Mike was a director.
I did.
Yeah. Mike was with Sears 25 plus 28 years and was also the director of design for Kenmore. Who hasn't had a Kenmore stove?
Yeah, my dad always said, hey, if you want to buy a washer and dryer, go to Sears and buy the top of the line Kenmore. You'll always be happy.
And inside every one of those is a little signature by Mike Saubert.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, I made that up, but that sounds real good.
No, there isn't.
Anyway, but China. I know Mike. I've known Mike. Our sons played college football at Drake. Mike's son now, can I say this, Mike?
Sure. Yeah.
Is now an NFL tight end. He's with the Seattle Seahawks. tight end for the
Congratulations. That's
Seahawks.
pretty good, right.
He's been with a lot of great teams and continues on now in ninth year, I think, in the
Ninth year
in the
That'd be
NFL.
fun. Right.
Anyway, played with my son Lee, but so we've known each other. But Mike was telling me about you went to China, right? Didn't you go to
Did.
China to talk? Share your story about your China trip and manufacturing and tariffs. Bob, you need to hear this because you and I have had this conversation about who pays the tariff.
No,
Yeah.
never. I don't want to get into that because I actually know who does that. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. No worries. No, I mean we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
I definitely want to stay on the topic of manufacturing if we
Yeah.
can, because
Yeah.
I'm interested in America being a great manufacturer. I am a design engineer and do all kinds of industrial design, and
Right.
I love the manufacturing process. I love, the idea of creating value through manufacturing. And one of the things we found out this morning, just by doing a Google search, is that in America right now, there are 478,000 open manufacturing jobs.
Yeah. I
That are
would not
open.
be surprised. Right.
478,000.
Right.
And that's with the existing manufacturing companies we have.
Sure.
Okay. And, we are number 2 behind China in manufacturing.
Mhm.
And so we cannot fill the open jobs we have with the people we have. And so how are we going to get more manufacturing to come to United States if we can't fill the jobs we currently have?
I think that's part of the pushback that people, even like Tim Cook or Apple, would say to Trump. He'd say, look, he might tell Trump, I want to make iPhones in the United States. Where am I going to go hire the technicians that know how to do that?
Yep.
We don't train them anymore.
Screwing in the little screws.
I have been on the manufacturing bandwagon since about the 80s, maybe a little bit before that, when Intel got up one day, and I was a big supporter and worker with all the Intel people. We played racquetball together, et cetera, down in Silicon Valley. But one day, Intel said, hey, we're going to sell our chip business to Japan. And that was the beginning of the end. Right. And the icing on the cake, and you brought it up, the icing on the cake when IBM, America's theoretically computer company, according to Tom Watson and his son for years, gets out of the PC business. They were sold in 600 business land stores, their personal computer. They dropped that personal computer, closed all 600 stores, and then sold their laptop business to Lenovo in China. They're a computer company, but we know now they're not anymore a computer company. They're a server company, a storage company, and a software company. And their biggest customers are the government of different countries, right? So I've watched manufacturing go for years. I worked closely with a personal computer company out of Hong Kong, and we imported literally, thousands of computers over to the United States and got them over here and couldn't sell them because they were manufactured with 8086 chips instead of 8088 chips. And nobody told the manufacturer to use the right chip. So, and I worked with the president of that company to unload all those thousands of computers, which we finally did. But the point is, just like you're saying, we've lost the manufacturing edge. Most of the people that I know that go to college don't want to become a manufacturer. They don't want to be in manufacturer. We don't train. I've always said welders eventually are going to be wealthy because there's just getting fewer and fewer of them, but we still have a great demand for them. And you actually emphasized that point when you listed how many manufacturing jobs are out there, right? You're still trying to, or I always say, eventually the plumbers will become wealthy, They won't come to your house. You'll have to take your toilet to their house where they're fixing it.
Pull it up and take it.
You'll call your plumber and they'll say, no, we don't do house calls anymore. You can bring it over here. We'll take a look at it, right? But, because that's it. Those are things that can't be outsourced. But to your point, Mike, which is right on, Trump can get up every day and say, we want to bring the manufacturing jobs back. And that's a great thing. But the logistics, the supply chain, the materials, and as you say, the people that want to do it We don't have those people anymore, right?
Right.
We know there were families in the Michigan area that worked in these small towns, and their father worked in the General Motors plant, and the son worked there, and the cousin worked there, and the brother-in-law worked there. They all worked there. That doesn't exist anymore.
Right, right. And what's interesting is, China has been running kind of this interesting cyclical work program that basically is based on the Lunar New Year there. And what they do is their factories are set up so that when people come to work for the factory, they actually live at the factory. They live in great big dormitories, and they live there. And then when Chinese New Year comes, and this is as of late, I'd say the past 10 years, all the workers go home to celebrate Chinese New Year with their families.
Sure.
But what the problem is people don't come back because they even get so sick and tired of manufacturing. And they come from the countryside where they were basically from an agrarian society. They're most of the growers out in the hinterland, right? And they like that life better. They don't want to be manufacturers.
Yeah, who can blame them?
Right. And
If
so
they can make enough money to live growing rice or wheat,
yeah,
you should be able to do it.
So they do that. So manufacturing, and the reason I bring it up is I once talked to an executive from the Warren Buffett organization, and
the Oracle of Omaha, good Nebraska boy.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he wears red too.
Underwear.
And in any event, he said, this is the executive that I spoke to. He was in charge of like a division of many companies that Warren Buffett owns. And he said, we do one thing when we manufacture. We have people that put the product or the raw materials into the machines in the front of the production line. And then we have a couple people at the end of the production line that take the finished product off. And everything else is automated. And the reason they do that is because then they don't have to pay a pension. Then they don't have to pay, it's one less pension they have to worry about if and medical benefits, right? For people working on the production line. So they take a very, very lean approach to manufacturing, and that's what it makes manufacturing successful in the United States is when you can automate it. China has the ability to create a manufacturing line for almost any product that you can think of. And they can have literally 200 people on an assembly line the next day after the manufacturing engineers determine what needs to be made for the product. And they can have these people make this stuff ad nauseum.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having people available.
You're dead on. I was listening to a talk. I think this was by Tim Cook, and it was probably 8-9 years ago. And it was a conversation that he was having with someone who was interviewing him, right? And the question came up. Interviewer said, "Mr. Cook, you're an American company. You're located in Silicon Valley. Why don't you make those phones in the United States?" And here was his answer, paraphrased a bit. He said, "Look," he said, "we are making changes to the iPhone manufacturing right up to maybe a day before we ship. Maybe there's small changes. Maybe it's the box that we're changing or the shipping container or sometimes even the paint." Now, he said in China, we just call up and they adapt. He said, now we come back to the United States. What would I have to do? I'd have to meet with the union representative or the non-union representative who would say, well, we can't make that change in 24 hours, or the prices are going to have to go skyrocket now. And he said, we don't have any of those issues when we deal with China. We don't have to deal with a group of people representing a group of people, such as a union or some other, organization. He said, they want the business. If we have to make a change 2 days before shipment, they make the change. They don't argue over the price. We might argue later, but we don't argue when we have to make the change. A wonderful, wonderful concept.
Yeah.
And I agree with them. I've had to manufacture. I was a manufacturer, and I made pumps in the United States. And Bethlehem Steel one day wanted the business, and I said, I can't give you the business. And I said, because I make pumps over in Holland. And even though you're located near one of our customers, I can make the pump in Holland, ship it over on a 747, download it, put it on a truck, and ship it to the location cheaper than I can use your steel company in Bethlehem. Now, there's other places. For example, I could manufacture some of the pumps in Minneapolis, which we did. But Bethlehem Steel wanted the business. They basically said I was a liar. They said, Sherwood, you're a liar. It's not true. And I said, I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm going to show you the bid estimate on your manufacturing from a company called Landistry Snake and Landistry Holland. And I'm going to show you this bid. And I said, I know this is wrong, but I want you to understand I'm not a liar. So I showed him the bid. And here's what the bid looked like. And I'll try to summarize. It said welding steel, 3 hours, person A. Painting steel, 2 hours, person A. Loading up steel in a box, 4 hours, person A. So in other words, it was always person A. Now I said, now look at your Bethlehem Steel bid. You've got painting, person A, which only takes an hour. You got down 4 hours because that's the minimum you can put a painter on. And then you got to do welding. You can't use your painter for welding. You got to use a welder. It only takes 30 minutes, but you got to pay the guy 4 hours because that's the union rule. So at the end of the day, you've got like 10 people on a job, each person putting 4 hours, that's 40 hours. And in 10 hours, one guy in Holland has built the damn pump and shipped it. They don't have the one guy, because over there, the guy can paint, weld, box, ship. And the guy says, I said, now, it isn't labor rates, RATES. It's the environment that you run your manufacturing in.
Right,
you have so many more constraints than the constraints of a manufacturer in Holland. Anyway, that's
this is good stuff.
and that is a problem in manufacturing in the United States. You have these encumbered costs, and that end up just adding to the bottom line that make certain areas of manufacturing in the States less plausible, and that is problematic, and that is so. So to me, what I learned from talking to that executive that one day, from Warren Buffett's organization, that's something that's kind of like a rule of thumb. If you want to manufacture in this country, you have to automate as much as you possibly can.
I think that's the key. I think you're right.
Or you are going to just bleed.
Even with automation, there's what I'll call, I hate to use the term like infrastructure. It just is so imprecise. But my example of infrastructure is when I was working with Intel. And Intel was discussing about how expensive it was to manufacture in the United States. And they said, for example, in our manufacturing process to make chips, we tend to use a lot of water. We have to wash things down. And some of those water then has heavy metals in it. Now, the EPA doesn't let us send that down the sewer. The EPA says, I've got to build a $30 million water treatment plant to treat those, remove those metals before I can put the water in the sewer. Now, let's go to China. If you wash down the chips there, it goes down the sewer, nobody cares. So they also have an infrastructure, and you can say that's good or bad, but I'm just saying, just factually speaking, they don't have an EPA equivalent that looks at the water and says, you're putting heavy metals in our water. And we do. And we have this plant going up here in Kansas. It's about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from my house. And they've been at it for 5 years. I think it took them 3.5 years to get EPA approval. 3.5 years. I mean,
I've been to plants in China where I've seen the runoff of industrial waste going through the company grounds to a culvert, basically, that takes it somewhere.
Exactly. Go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of water, here's the question that Trump actually at his desk. It isn't the Resolute desk; it's his backup desk, because Elon Musk's boy X wiped his face and his stuff on the Resolute desk, so Trump took it out. He made a big deal of signing the following: shower heads, the low output. Can you imagine signing an executive order that no more low output shower heads in America?
No more high output, you mean? Was it high output or low output?
Well, no, because when you take a shower, you know how it doesn't come out as fast?
Right.
He wants it to come out fast. So I think it's low. He did away with the low output.
Okay.
Right.
How could you do that as the president? How could you determine a product design like that?
Yeah, because he does have some merit on the toilet flushing. Remember when we went to low flush toilets? I mean, it does take sometimes it's too much personal information. But when I'm doing my research and development, sometimes it takes 2 flushes.
Oh my gosh,
that's too much information.
He was kind of focused on California. California has a rule: when you build a new house, you have to put in these low head showers.
Right, low pressure. Yeah,
low pressure.
Yeah,
and I think he was kind of getting at them. And a lot of the builders there complain. They complain because if they have to supply only a low head shower, it means the low pressure shower companies have an advantage. Mm-hmm. And I like to shower in California, but I like to shower with high pressure.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy about that. And probably the builders are. But yeah, that's a very, very, you're right. It's a very, very specific thing that somebody came to him with hey, here's another way to get at California. We're gonna low pressure shower. They're gonna be really annoyed.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting to watch what's going on. I'm like you, Mike. I have been preaching this manufacturing thing. I could go back to podcasts 20 years ago, and of course I saw it in spades because I give an example. We were making circuit boards in the United States. We're making circuit boards for, in the old days, you had slots in your PCs. We're making circuit boards for them, right? And we're making these circuit boards here, and we're selling them for like $400. We're actually making a lot of money. There were many companies doing this, right? One day, a guy from Taiwan shows up. And he says, do you know the circuit board that you're making for $200 and selling for $400? He says, I can sell that board for $20.
Oh my God.
$20. I said, what? Well, I succumbed. I sold my soul. I started buying circuit boards from them. Only thing we had to do is take their circuit board and translate all of their documentation to English, put it in our old box and sell it. Literally, we were making so much money. Now, how long did it last? About a year and a half. I used to have my wife come down to our office and take all the money to the bank. That was her job because we were making so much money. I had 20 people in a room with phones, and I had one closer. And these people would call dealers, computer dealers. They said, we got this great deal, blah, 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 blah. When they get ready to close, my closer would get on, pick up phones and say, yeah, this is Kevin Shire. That was his name. He did such a good job, I bought him a black Porsche.
Now, is this the board for color monitors?
18. No. This is circuit boards to drive certain things on Apples and IBM PCs. Now,
okay.
Let me finish. But what happened? A year and a half later, 2 years later, Taiwan said, oh, we just decided we're not going to sell through you anymore. We're going to sell to your
direct. Wow.
We were gone. 6 months later, we were gone. We were looking for something else to do.
Wow.
Another company that you may remember, Hercules Graphics Company, went from 0 to 400 million in 18 months and back to 0 6 months later. They were hit by the same thing. They sold the best. Now, getting back to your question, Dan, we made EGA cards, enhanced graphic adapter cards for Apple and for PCs. It was a sweet business. There's no maintenance. There's no customization. Nobody calls you. They either work or they don't work. If they don't work, they throw them away and get another
mailbox money, right?
Yeah. Mailbox money. Exactly right. Helen would come down and we get all the CODs back from the shippers. And yeah, it was great. But the manufacturing now, so one day I'm talking to this guy's name was Perry, right? And I said, Perry, how in the world are you making this card, so $20. He said, well, he said, that's my cost. It actually costs me $20. But every one I ship out of the United States, the Taiwan government gives me 25% of that value. So I actually make, he says, that's like real money. I don't have to do anything for it. I just show that I shipped this product. They write me a check.
Wow.
Because the government was subsidizing. They wanted to be a big circuit board manufacturer, right?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great story because you talk about people. He brought his family over. They slept in the warehouse. When you were buying stuff from them, you'd actually go back into the warehouse, just pick out whatever you wanted. Then you walk out to the front, and his dad would be there, who could barely speak English, but he brought him over, and his dad would scratch up on a sheet of paper and tell you, there was no adding, there was no calculator. He would just give you a yellow sheet of paper saying, oh, $436, right? And you'd pay him and leave. I mean, they had no administration, right? You just went back. It's like a huge warehouse in the back. You just picked out what you wanted and brought it up to the front. And I'm thinking, see, that's what I call focus on making business easy.
Yeah, right.
And then one day, Perry, who had brought his family over, one day Perry drove up to his office in a brand new Mercedes Benz. And I told him, I said, I guess it's over, huh? You've now hit the top. Now you're spending money.
Yeah.
Grandparents often stand on the sidelines, watching their son or daughter's new-to-family navigate challenges, feeling unsure of how to help. But what if you could offer them a gift that brings confidence, support, and understanding? Welcome to USABFA, the National Association for Blended Families and Single Parents. Grandparents like Jeff and Becky made the choice to gift a USABFA membership, and they saw the difference it made. It became the best decision for their family's future. For less than $4 a month, USABFA provides daily and weekly resources tailored to family dynamics, on-demand videos, podcasts, and coaching tips, exclusive savings on products and services. This is more than a membership, it's a lifeline. It's a gift that equips your family with the tools and support to thrive together. Join the largest family demographic in America. Turn challenges into milestones and be part of the solution. With USABFA, you're never alone on this journey.
Bob, that's why America loves to listen to Banter, because you got the best stories. But you know what? It's time to wind down, because we've learned about our iPhones
Bring
are
us
safe.
home. Have Mike bring us home.
We've learned a lot of stuff. Mike, any words of wisdom? Except we're going to see you. You're going to draw Bob Sherwood live. It'll be spectacular.
Yeah,
Exactly. We're going to talk about human-centered design, and we're going to talk about the creativity that comes from the right side of the brain. And,
While you're drawing.
And how you can combine the analytical and creative side of your brain to be a little bit more what we call T-shaped. And being a T-shaped person helps you be a better critical thinker and helps you eliminate some of your biases. So that is, anyhow, what I hope to talk about.
That's right.
I'm very excited to hear that.
And if you think about this, folks, we will know what the Apple stock did based on a Saturday announcement.
Mhm.
I'm saying,
And we will probably
$25
see
a
Donald
share.
Trump do 2 or 3 more things. Mike and I, as I said, we've known each other. We watched a video this morning give Seth, what's his name?
Seth Meyers?
Seth Meyers, for fun. We watched one of his monologues. Seth Meyers had a picture of a little boy in an elevator, and he said, Donald Trump is doing the tariff stuff like a little kid in the elevator. He's pushing all the buttons.
Seth Meyers is a comedian. He's not a politician. He's not an analyst.
But how true is that? Trump's pushing
Not
all the
true at
buttons
all.
to see where he can go.
No, it's a bad. One thing I'll tell you, I've learned from my deposition work and my expert witness work, you have to be very, very careful with analogies, because analogies generally don't quite fit because there's some parameter that doesn't map from one analogy to the real life. So whatever analogy somebody gives me, I'll guarantee you I can find a hole in it somewhere.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Because the parameters, it's like mapping, right? The mapping of both situations have to be so equal, and they're never equal.
You are the analogy terminator. I'll be back. I'll terminate your analogy.
But see, comedians use them because they're funny, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was funny. When you see this little blonde-haired kid pushing all the buttons in the elevator, it was priceless. Yeah. Okay, folks.
Mike,
we'll see you again. Thanks for watching Banter. Be sure and like, subscribe, share right now. Hit the like button on this video. Share it with somebody. Say, how about these guys? Join us back soon and stay winsome out there. And that's all I got.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, all right. Bye-bye. Have a great Saturday.